Renars podcast.
Girl, I wanna be more than a friend.
Here you go, just a little intro music. And today I have Jeremy in the house. Jeremy Lipkowitz, very Polish last name. Jeremy, he is a coach who helps people to get kind of over their porn addiction. And probably that's the first type of coach I ever met before. How are you, buddy?
Good, man.
Good. Thanks for being here. So we met, Jeremy came over to a cafe, which me and my two partners opened recently. And me and Jeremy just started talking, and I was like, what do you do? And he's like, well, I do this. And I'm like, that is very interesting. Let's talk more about it. But before we get getting straight into porn, these are these buttons. Yeah.
Oh, nice. Thank you. It's nice to be here.
Before we get in there, let's talk about, first of all, you being in Bali now for a bit. This is your first time. You've been here before. What is your story regarding Bali?
Second time in Bali. So I was here maybe 4 years ago for just like 2 weeks, because I used to live in Thailand. So I lived in Thailand for 4 years. And while I was there, you would travel around other countries, and came here for about 2 weeks with a friend. So it's not my first time in Southeast Asia, but back here in Bali now for about 6 months, and giving it a shot and seeing if I want to move here or something.
Right. Yeah, well, why not? Look at Bali. Bali is amazing.
It is amazing.
It's not a brainer when someone says like, oh, do you want to live in Bali? Like, duh. It's just a question to figure out how.
Yeah.
How to figure out how to make money and still stay sane, I guess.
Yeah. Well, for me, it's interesting. I have that part figured out. Like, I already do all my work online. I have online courses. So I could move here if I want. But it's a question of, do I want to give up my life in Amsterdam, which is nice, but I've got community, friends,
Someone with your accent is definitely from Amsterdam.
Well, not from Amsterdam.
My life in Amsterdam. How long you been in Amsterdam now?
3 years, since the beginning of the pandemic.
Right. And so originally you are from States, but which state? Which
California.
part? California.
Yeah.
And how you decided, like, that's it, I'm done with California. Like, I want to explore, see something else, or you just kind of didn't enjoy any more states, or?
Yeah, it wasn't, back then it wasn't so much like I didn't enjoy the States. Back then it was, so my background is in genetics. So I used to be studying genetics. I was working on a PhD at Duke in genetics and genomics. And around that time I started teaching meditation just for fun, just because I was passionate about it and wanted mostly a way to keep myself consistent with my own practice. So I was teaching it to others and doing my PhD at the same time. And I just realized that I was more passionate about teaching people about mental health and wellness and how to understand what's going on in their mind. So I left my PhD program and quit academia and started teaching meditation full time. And happened to get this job offer in Bangkok, teaching mindfulness in a school. So flew to Bangkok, worked there for a year, and fell in love with Asia. Didn't really like Bangkok, so then I ended up moving to Chiang Mai and stayed there for 3 years.
Stayed in Chiang Mai for 3 years.
Yeah,
I've been there. Very beautiful place. Who hasn't been there? In my opinion, it was one of the most like peaceful kind of places as well. There's still like a presence of tourism quite strong, but not as crazy as Phuket or.
It's not a party.
Yeah,
because it doesn't have any beaches, so it doesn't attract like the full moon party crowd.
Yeah.
It's more people who want to go, elephant sanctuary or visit a monastery. So
nice. Did you learn how to speak in Thai?
Yeah. What do you hop?
Hop.
Hop.
There was like, how do you say how are you? It was where
Sabai di mai hop.
Okay. Kap and kap was thank you.
Kap and kap.
Yeah, that's the only thing I remember.
Yeah.
Kap and kap, and then there's a kap.
You didn't learn
No.
where's the bathroom?
No, it was not long enough.
Or,
I literally I was there for 2 Christmases, and each Christmas like just 3 weeks. So I wasn't like.
Yeah.
And
it's a tough language. I mean, it's a tonal language, so it's really tricky to get. Yeah.
And then are you thinking about going back to Thailand eventually, or?
Trying to figure that out. Like, do I want to really give Bali a shot, stay here long term? Do I want to give Thailand another chance?
Why would you give a shot to any place in the sense of like being like, that's it, this is my place? You can be, as you said, like you are very location independent. So super digital nomads.
Super digital
Shout out
nomad.
to digital nomads. I have a special sound for them. Oh no, this one. This is the digital
Yeah.
nomad sound. Yeah.
Welcome to Bali.
I am a digital nomad.
Yeah.
I have no job, and I'm eating nasi goreng every day.
Yeah.
Nasi goreng is one of the most cheapest things you can find in a local Varungs. Just saying.
Which
to
we were
people.
just talking about.
Yeah.
How much I love. my
How
local
much you love,
Walgreens.
yeah. So obviously, your business is flourishing since you
Exactly.
study in those places.
Yeah.
Things are being go well. I really want to tiptoe around this the porn thing for a little bit. We'll learn a little bit more about you.
Yeah.
You said about PhD. PhD, that is, first of all, in America, that's a lot of money. So did you
Well,
get a scholarship? How did you?
Yeah.
Yeah?
So most science PhDs in the States, you get a scholarship for.
Oh, okay.
So like a master's program is usually you have to pay for it.
Right.
If you get accepted into a PhD program, it's usually because they're going to pay for you for your first, for you to do it. So not only did I get a scholarship from Duke to do that, but I also got a scholarship from the National Science Foundation.
A scholarship from Duke. What the hell that means? Duke, like of Manchester, Duke of Wellington.
Oh,
What
Duke is a well-known university in the U.S.
Oh,
Duke
right.
University.
Right. Like Oxford in
Exactly.
UK?
Like
maybe?
Yale, Oxford,
Oh, okay.
Stanford. Duke is one of those.
That's how much I know about universities in States.
Yeah, it's one of those snooty ones where if you want to name drop where you went, you're like, oh yeah, I can name
I've
drop
been
my
studying
school.
in Duke.
Yes, exactly.
What have you done with your life?
Exactly. Yeah. If I feel that the need to name drop a little bit,
Yeah,
I'll say Duke. But then
Bush, and then half of
clearly
people
a
like,
Neanderthal like you doesn't know anything. So
whoa, yeah.
yeah,
Neanderthal. I will take that as a compliment.
You should.
They're like they're good-looking
exactly,
guys. A couple of days ago we had a trip. I told you I was on a trip, that different kind of trip, psychedelic trip, and for some reason I was like, my lady, she was like, oh baby, you're just so sexy. You look at you so muscly, and I was like, I'm okay man. Yes, I get the shroom, I get the lady. So like that is just like.
Where did your Russian accent?
I don't know. It's kind of like that's my Neanderthal accent.
I see. What are you saying about Russians? Huh?
Oh, that's what I just said.
Yeah.
There you go.
Hey.
And so you studied pretty much, what's that? 4 years bachelor, 2 years master's.
So I went straight into my PhD. So sometimes you can do a master's, or if you're on a fast track, if you're doing well, you can go straight from bachelor's straight into a PhD program.
Wait a minute, but what about your bachelor's?
Yeah, I did my bachelor's first
Yeah,
at UC Davis in California.
right.
And then after that, I got accepted into the PhD program.
Oh, straight away. So you skipped. That's what I thought. I thought you said you did master's and then you did PhD.
No.
Okay. So you skipped
So masters,
master's.
Yeah, I was saying
Oh, wow.
masters early because master's programs you usually have to pay for.
Right.
Yeah, but I didn't.
That's very interesting. I never heard that before, that you can just skip masters.
Yeah,
It's an American thing, I guess.
yeah.
Okay, so that means then in PhD was like 2 years?
Well, I was there for 4.5 years.
Oh, okay.
The average of our program is like 6.5 years. to
PhD
finish.
is 6.5 years.
And it's also different. Like in the UK, where people usually do a master's first and then PhD. PhD is more like 3 years because you go straight into the laboratory.
Right.
You're usually working on the project that your PI wants you to work on. But in the US, you do a lot more courses, and then you're also developing your own research project. So our
Wow.
average is a bit longer.
So what was your PhD about?
It's systems biology and gene regulatory networks. We're studying developmental biology. Yeah. Tell me about it.
It's like almost like you're talking about network, like the mushroom network when in the ground.
Kind of. I was actually studying plant root development. So
Yeah.
we studied plant roots as our system to understand developmental biology. Like, how do you go from a single stem cell to, skin cells, nerve cells, bone cells? That's a
Wow.
complicated process.
And then you got to the boner cells. Oh.
Wow, if that's the level of your humor, you're just going to have to be using those sound effects to bring the laughter, because I don't know if it's coming
You
anywhere
called
else.
me Neanderthal. This is what you're getting now. That's it. What about like your family? So they were supporting you through your studies, and they were like very happy for you, what you were doing, and then you kind of
Peaced out.
pieced out. And
Yeah.
and what was the
Yeah, it was interesting.
reaction?
My mom is actually a research professor,
Oh, okay.
or was until she retired. So she is in academia, scientist. and was very happy that I was like following in her footsteps. And then when I told her that I was leaving academia, she's like, no, how can you leave? You know, you just have, you know, you're so close to finishing. Why not just finish? But, you know, the thing is, you know, I was hearing her complain about how much she hated academia, all the politics, all the bullshit, all the drama. And, and I was like, Mom, like, what are you talking about? This is a horrible place to spend your life. Like, I'm leaving for my mental health, and you should too. And she's like, yeah, you're probably right. Yeah. And so she retired a few years later.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's very interesting, like how older generation, they just kind of, they were so conditioned that this is the way to do it, and this is the way to live your life, and this is, oh, you got your PhD, that means you accomplished, and you should continue doing it. And that's so funny, because in my life, I met some people who would also get their PhDs, but they did masters as well, so they didn't skip that. And I remember I already left Latvia, so I was in Canada, then I moved to UK, and would go back home, and I had this very good friend of mine who, obviously, he really liked the showman stuff. Like, he wanted to do stand-up, he wanted to do like presentation, whatever. And he was a lawyer who just got his PhD. And I said, like, I'm a proof that it's possible. Like, I left when I was 25, 26, so quite late. And like, look, I'm doing this and this in UK. Like, as long as you just want to do it, it's going to happen. But his thing was like, no, I got my PhD, I paid all this money, and I'm like this lawyer now. Even though I hate my job, I'm still going to stay here. I was like, are you listening to yourself? Right. Like, how does it make any sense to continue this path? And
a lot of people, I mean, it's so interesting, because one of the reasons I eventually left is I realized, like, I was close to finishing relatively, but I realized, you know, I wasn't going to do anything with my PhD afterwards. You know, I didn't want to be a scientist. But so many people are afraid to start over. You know, they're like, well, I'm this far in, like, it's too late for me to start a whole new journey. And they have this feeling that they just can't do something new. They're like, well, I don't like what I'm doing, but I've already invested in it and got this. But it's never too late.
That's, again, this is something what we are conditioned since we're kids, and you're like someone who's a scientist. Are you a scientist?
I would say so.
Can I call you a scientist?
I was a scientist.
That's so sexy.
Should I wear my scientist
I have
outfit?
the first scientist in my podcast. I think so. I'm not sure. I had politicians. I had world leaders, but never had a scientist. The scientist and the caveman. That's a perfect combo.
The stuntman and the porn junkie.
Hey, or that. Yeah, we have
There's a lot of ways to define.
AKA. Yeah. When people kind of are so conditioned since they're kids that this is the way we have to live. And I recently was talking about this concept of how many straight people never even consider, like straight guys, never consider to kiss another guy or do like different like explorations about their sexuality. And one of the main reasons is because since they're kids, they're conditioned. Girl likes a boy, boy likes a girl, and mommy, daddy, and the kids, and so many countries are so strict of saying like, no, don't even think about it, right? And it was so funny because I had this Russian friend sitting next to me, and he just looks at me, and he's just studying Russian, English, but he's really trying, and he's like, Renars, I don't understand. What do you mean? I know I like girls. I always know. But then I was telling him, can you imagine if you grow up in kindergarten when everyone say like, you can love girls or boys, it doesn't matter, you know, as long as you're happy. Do you think you would think differently? And I was kind of challenging him on that. And he was like, yes, Renars, you're right. It could be true, yes. I knew a little bit I like men every time. But you know what I mean? Like how we condition like since we're kids to certain things, right? So what do you have as a scientist to say about it?
Totally true. I mean, it's fascinating just to think about how much of our life is just because of how we've been conditioned versus how much is naturally there. There's a lot of questions of nature versus nurture and all that, but it's fascinating to think about. You know?
What do you think about the whole concept of the gut feeling? The gut feeling when I remember when I was younger, when I was like also in university, I felt like I made my decisions with my brains, with my head. Yeah. Most likely I didn't, but I thought I did. But then there was a certain point when I knew like everything inside just was saying that I need to change something in my life. And I would say that as a gut feeling.
Totally. I mean, not only is it like a interesting term, we actually know now scientifically that there's truth to that. One of the things, I don't know if I told you, I teach emotional intelligence in organizations. So I go into these companies and teach emotional intelligence. And one of the things we teach about is what is emotional intelligence, and this kind of the wisdom of the body is actually real. There's a fascinating study I could tell you to explain it if you want. So imagine,
give me go.
and for the people listening at home, imagine you go into a room, and on the table you see 4 decks of cards, and there's 2 blue decks and 2 red decks, and you have to pull from these different decks to try to win as much money as possible, and you don't know how like the cards. You're just like, okay, there's 4 decks. Each card you draw will either win you money or lose you money. But what you don't know is the red decks are minefields. Like, you're more statistically likely to lose money if you're pulling from the red decks.
Okay.
You don't know that at first, right? And so you have to just pick by trial and error. The question is, how long does it take you to figure out that the red decks are fucked and you should be drawing from the blue decks?
Right.
So they did that, and they found that about 50 cards in, you start to have an idea that something's wrong with the red decks. You're like, okay, something.
50. That's quite a lot of cards.
Well, you don't know how statistically rigged it is. It's not like every card in the red deck is wrong. It's just that it's more likely. It's rigged in your favor to be drawing from the blue. So it's not every red card is a red card. You know what I mean?
Okay, so
That's
eventually you would learn, basically, yeah.
Eventually. So it takes 50 for you to have a hunch. By 80 cards, most people have figured it out. They're like, oh, shit, okay, these red decks is broken. I should just draw from the blue. Now, here's where it's fascinating. They attached a lie detector test to people's palms, which measures the sweat response. And what they found is that after 10 cards, when people started reaching for the red decks, they started to sweat.
So your body basically says before you even, your brain...
Exactly.
Oh, wow.
40 cards before your brain has an idea, your body's already sweating.
That is really cool.
And it shows you the body knows shit that your mind doesn't know about.
That is really cool.
So the wisdom of the body is a real thing.
Yeah.
And so the gut feeling is like, my body's telling me something is wrong. And it's interesting because it's like, sometimes the gut feeling should be listened to, but sometimes the gut feeling is based off of, racism, other things. Like, you might have a gut feeling of fear when a black person walks in the room, but that might be because you're racist towards black people.
The stereotypes, right? So
exactly.
the what they call, like, what does the stereotype mean? Stereotype is like a defense mechanism.
Yeah.
Because we've seen, we heard, we witnessed that certain type of people do certain type of things, then we automatically assume, and this is so embedded in our DNAs.
Yeah.
Like, just like so many different other things, like aggression or whatever, like it's in our DNAs, and there's not much you can do about it.
But there's also systemic racism, systemic bias, where you don't even think that you're biased, but based off of your conditioning, your childhood, how you were raised, you might be biased towards things. So the gut feeling is real. Whether or not you always listen to it as the truth is another question.
Yeah, for me, like living in London for so long time, like we have these whole stories and events of like stabbing. So it's a big thing now. And the stabbers usually assume like these young kids with like hoodies on and whatever. And listen, like if I see someone like this walking down the street and walking like not like near me or something, I'm getting aware.
Exactly. But it's interesting because there's a famous case of this in the U.S. There was a young black kid in a hoodie with Skittles in his pocket, and these 2 white people like chased him down and murdered him because they thought he was a criminal when he was going for a walk, but he was wearing a hoodie. Yeah. So it's just interesting to like see like, oh yeah, the body tells you stuff, but this is getting back to the how we were raised and
and what kind of like triggers can happen.
Yeah.
For what we witnessed as kids.
Yeah.
Okay, so about meditation and but also like when you were talking about the regarding the cards, what did you say? It's intellectual. What was the name of it?
Emotional intelligence.
Emotional intelligence. There's a very famous book, Emotional Intelligence. I think.
Dan Goleman.
Yeah. I remember one of my guests suggested to check that out. And what were the main points about that emotional intelligence? Do you remember from that book?
I mean, the basic concept is you can do a lot of work, building up your skill set in computer programming, stunt acting, all kinds of other things. But people don't realize that like emotional intelligence is a skill set that you need to develop also. And it gives you things like self-awareness and self-management, like how do you manage your emotions, is a skill you can learn.
Right. Instead of react,
exactly. Like
So
if you get
is that
angry
something
at
what
a
you
company-
do? What do you help people?
Yeah.
Okay, so tell us more about that. How do you do it? What is also what kind of training you've done before to qualify?
Yeah. Well, mindfulness, going back to my,
Mm-hmm.
we'll talk about this with porn addiction, but, what got me initially over the hump of porn addiction, no pun intended.
Yeah.
I
didn't
wasn't
even-
planning that.
I didn't even
swear.
got
I
it.
was
I'm
like,
just
oh,
so-
shit. Yeah. Can you hit that little,
Which one? This
No,
one?
Oh,
Oh,
there we go. Thanks.
I don't even need,
delayed.
I
but-
don't even do the button. You just say tits.
Yeah.
Tits.
Man, this is going downhill.
No pun intended.
Yeah.
No pun intended. I like you say, I like penises. No pun intended. It's just like, but what do you mean by that? Well, it's a very rare flower somewhere in jungle. Cold penis.
Yeah. All right. So, mindfulness, like
I like the transaction.
Yeah. The transition or transaction?
No, transaction, because I just transferred money to you and apologizing what I'm doing here
Oh,
today.
okay. Yeah. Anyways, emotional intelligence, one of the foundations of it is mindfulness.
Yeah.
And being aware of what's happening. Being aware of what's happening in your mind, in your body, in your life, and in your interactions with other people.
Mm-hmm.
So that is one of the things I've always been teaching people. I mean, always, going back to 12 years ago when I started teaching people, is really just how to be aware of what's happening. And then from that, you can build off of these other emotional intelligence capacities like self-control and self-management, also empathy, motivation, like how do you actually get motivated to do things? How do you develop resilience when things don't go the way you want? Equanimity, when you're in a challenging situation, how do you keep your calm? So there's a lot of keep it cool. Yeah.
Yeah. So when you said about the, so there's also the anger management is kind of part of it as well. So basically, how you act in among people, like in society, how you behave.
Exactly.
It's like a behavioral management and stuff.
Exactly. I mean, how do you act skillfully?
Yeah.
Like, of course, you could just be a buffoon, and when you're angry, you can hit people, and when you're upset, you can just cry out loud. But that's not always the skillful way to behave.
Right. So it's basically example when the Karen comes over to counter and it's just total Karen, and then people have to handle it professionally.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, how do you say, like, Miss, I'm sorry that you're upset, but unfortunately we can't provide you the refund because you don't like the French fries.
Yeah, you're such a Karen.
Yeah.
I would be the worst in that position.
Yeah, like, fuck you, Karen. No. And it's really these skills, people are recognizing these skills are more and more important in whatever career you want to have.
Yeah.
How you interact with other people, how you lead people and influence people.
And they are getting poorer and poorer. Is that the word?
Yeah.
Poorer. Because we just so lack the interaction.
Exactly. I mean, especially if you look at kids who spend all days on their phones, it's like they don't know how to interact with other people. You're going to have a lot
of work in the future.
Damn straight I am.
Yeah, girl.
Yeah.
I'm getting this.
Yeah.
Getting this bank. And I know, like studying in university, I remember a lot of people who would have issues with that, and their personalities, they're introverts. They're struggle to have that conversation, like which
socially awkward.
Socially awkward, which I never had any issues since I was a kid. I was like, I always could talk.
You're the opposite.
I'm the opposite. And I like sometimes you just teacher feels like holding me in a leash, just like, listen, you're just too much.
Yeah.
What do you mean too much? Do you want to talk about it? Give me maybe a good example from your perspective, like from last 5-10 years, when you would see that there's a really bad example of how someone doesn't know how to be a professional, and then just lose their cool, lose their shit, and then you think like, I think you should have my business card.
Yeah. I mean, there's basically like any example you can think of shitty behavior in the workplace, like people getting jealous, talking behind other people's backs, it's just all the kind of ways that people don't know how to engage skillfully with challenging, one of the modules I love teaching the most, and it's one of my favorite topics, is around difficult conversations. Like when you need to have a difficult conversation with somebody and tell something to someone that might be uncomfortable for you or for the other person, a lot of people will avoid that conversation.
Right.
They'll just say, I just don't want to have this conversation, so I'm just going to ghost this person, or we're just never going to talk about it. And you can't have a functioning team, a functioning company, if you don't know how to have difficult conversations.
The confrontation, squash the beef. What is the other way to call it?
Yeah, like how do you actually talk about that difficult issue without getting, without blaming the other person, or all this kind of stuff. That's a skill that you need to learn how to do.
Yeah.
And do it in a skillful way. So that's one of the biggest ones is difficult conversations because people just don't know how to do it.
And not even talking about a professional or business kind of environment or work environment on an everyday basis.
Friends.
We get in fights so many times, and I feel just a heavy rock on my chest if I don't squash that beef with someone.
Exactly.
And I anytime I have opportunity, listen, we need to talk.
Yeah.
It's like you think nothing's going on, I think it's going on. I think we need to talk. And pretty much 99% out of all those attempts of me squashing the beef, it improves.
Yeah. And sometimes it doesn't because the people don't know how to take it. Right. People don't know how to receive feedback, which is another skill. Like having the conversation, but also receiving the feedback is also a skill of emotional intelligence.
The constructive criticism as well.
Yeah. How do you not take it personally? But how do you say, thank you for bringing me this information so I can be better? Most people say, well, fuck you too. Like, how dare you? It's like, it's so beneficial to cultivate these things. Yeah. Like you said, not just for your workplace, but for your romance, for your relationships, your friendships, your family
relationships,
members.
That's 100%. And if you don't, you're gonna struggle.
Yeah.
And talking about constructive criticism, I remember I was very, much more defensive than I am now. If someone says Renars, that was shit, I was like, yeah, so what do I do now? We'll try to work on this, try to work on that. Awesome, I will do that. Yeah. And also the other thing you have to understand, it's a subjective criticism. So it's a one person, hopefully it's one person. it was like
99
5
friends.
Yeah,
and you still, your BO stinks, and you're like, that's just one person's perspective.
No,
it's funny that happened 99 times, but it's still 99 people's perspective.
And then Eminem starts singing his song, 99 Problems. No.
Jay-Z.
Oh, that was Jay-Z.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah. I can't even get the references right, but I knew there was a song. You say it's going to get worse and worse with the young kids, and how do you even deal with that?
Yeah.
Send a message.
I mean, it's something that I really don't know how we're going to handle it, because it's, talking about porn addiction, let alone screen addiction and kids just on Instagram and TikTok all day. The porn addiction problem in young kids is just, it's insane. Imagine if you had a cell phone when you were 8 years old and you had access to Pornhub. Well,
the only thing is I'm saying that parents who have some kind of responsibility, they put those blocks on. They can put all the blocks. And
kids can get around anything.
Kids can hack it.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, well, since you start talking about it, let's talk about the porn addiction.
Let's talk about porn,
You just get so excited. So how long have you been doing this now? How did it start and how did you came up with the idea?
So I've been coaching around porn addiction for the last 5 years. It starts way earlier. I mean, it starts with my own porn addiction. It's really, where it started and what got me into meditation.
I can join as well. But I'm the functional addict.
Yeah.
I think at least I think so.
Daily user. Yeah. Well, and there's a wide spectrum of whether something is totally fine to all the way to an addiction. Some people can use it in a healthy way. Some people use it a bit too much, where it's not the healthiest thing, but it's not ruining their life. Yeah. And then for some people, it's it's actually causing serious harm in their life.
I can't wait to hear what means this is okay. This is maybe too much.
You're just waiting for me to give you a green check. You're like, I just brought Jeremy on because I just really want to know that I'm okay.
5 times a day. Is that okay? I believe deep in heart it's okay. Yeah. But that's straight away. Here's a question. So just like with the functional alcoholics and alcohol, right? So every country they have. If you have a 1 pint a week, you're fine. If you have 4 pints a week, you should be be worried about it or whatever. So how is it? And who made that kind of research? Who this, gather the data and said, like, listen, if you watch Pornhub this amount of times, this is not okay? And how did they decide it?
Well, and that's what's very fascinating and maybe also frustrating is there's no hard and fast rule based off of how many times you're watching or, how long it is. It's really a self-diagnosis where you have to check in and say, what are the ways that this is influencing my life? And, what are the ways this is harming my life? What are the benefits that it's bringing to me? And it's really a personal diagnosis of, are the harms outweighing the benefits?
Right. And so it's not really about the actual amount, like how many times
you could get a sense, like if I talk to somebody and they say, yeah, I watch it 3 times a day, chances are it's, probably causing harm in their life.
Because then I straight away think about how how sexually active they are. Because if someone is, would have sex once a week, but they would replace that with watching porn once or twice a week. So that's kind of a problem for them, because then they replace that with the actual intimacy, which, I'm guessing considered to be healthier.
Yeah.
Or if someone who has sex every day and then they watch porn every day. I don't know. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, again, it really comes down to the person and what's going on with their life. Part of the other thing that's interesting about this is with a lot of other drugs, the consequences are immediate or very obviously connected. It's like, oh, this is because of my heroin use. With porn addiction, a lot of the consequences, they're kind of subtle. So sometimes they're hard to detect unless you're really self-aware, or they're things that develop over the long term. So you might not see it the next day or even the next week, but if you're watching porn every day for 10 years, so again, my background in science, I was fascinated by the concept of neuroplasticity, which is the understanding that our brain isn't just like something that develops when we're 19 and then it just stays the same. We're constantly forming new neural pathways, and we're strengthening the neural pathways that we use, and we're de-strengthening the neural pathways that we don't use. So if every night you watch an hour of porn for 10 years, every night you are strengthening the neural pathways associated with craving, with lust, with wanting a new, woman or man, whatever it is you're looking at. And so you're strengthening those neural pathways where they become the habitual pathways. And that's what I noticed in my life is like my habitual response was objectifying women, checking women out, and also because of the way that modern high-speed internet porn on tube sites, it's all about novelty. Every night you're scanning through hundreds or thousands of videos, looking at thumbnails, scrolling through, trying to find the best video, the best scene, and your mind is getting addicted and habituated to novelty, to wanting something new.
Sorry, when you say this word habituated, can you tell me what it means?
It's getting like, you expect that, you kind of get accustomed to it, where you end up needing something new or something more to get the same dopamine hit.
Right.
I mean, imagine if I were to say the last porn video you watched, which you probably enjoyed, if I were to say every time you watch porn, it has to be that video, and that's the only porn video you can ever watch again, you would be like, that's boring. Like, I need something new. Yeah,
for me, it's like, the way I watch porn, actually, no, I never. I just went, friend of mine was telling me this.
Yeah.
The way he watches porn, I would go back to the same old videos. I would be like, I have maybe 300 videos, and I would just go in a circle. Yeah. But the way it kind of works for me, I would say like, this one I saw 3 weeks ago, and this is and now 3 weeks later I watched it again. I was like, oh, it's actually, I like it again, kind of thing. So, and then what I thought straight away was how it feels like we dull ourselves down. Yeah. Like when we watch the porn, like these all kinky, whatever, different crazy ways, and the novelties when you say like, like, I'm a cookie, I'm selling cookies here. I just need to sell my last box. Will you buy it, please? But I don't need any cookies. I will do anything.
Yeah, the scenarios are just insane.
But when you say novelty, don't you mean that novelty? Novelty like how kind of...
I mean, it can be just as simple as just needing a new face.
Oh, okay.
Just like wanting a new video to watch, wanting a new scenario.
Oh, okay. That's what you mean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wanting, but what happens is because of the as you said, like we get dulled down where it's like most people, the same vanilla porn, like missionary sex, doesn't do it for them. Like the first time they see it, it's like, oh my God. Like first time you see it, it's like, oh my God, a breast.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, lingerie catalog.
First time that happened, that was when we were very young. That was our mothers. Okay, so.
Right. The second time it happened. Let's say the second time.
Listen, Mom, what's going on?
But so what happens is, over time, you need more and more extreme things because you're getting, it's called desensitized.
Desensitized.
Yeah.
Dulled is kind of a synonym.
Basically the same thing. It's like, that's kind of boring now. Like I need something a little more exciting to get the same hit.
Yeah.
And so then you start looking at, maybe I'll get into a little bit more or something rough.
It's like a definition for a proper junkie, like a drug addict.
Exactly.
You start with little stuff and you need more and more different, whatever, yeah.
And so there's no hard and fast definition of whether or not you have a problematic porn use, but there are ways to tell based off of certain signs. So one of them is if you find yourself getting into more and more extreme, things that might be out of alignment with your ethical values, your interests, whatever, or just more and more extreme. If you need that kind of extremeness and you see it getting more extreme over time, that's one sign that you're developing a dependence and getting desensitized to it.
So if you still fine with watching the missionary old videos, then you're fine. Then I'm cured.
Unless that's you getting more and more extreme missionary. But like if you're, again, there's no hard and fast rule. But like if you're watching, once a week or once every few days, and you open up Pornhub and you find the first video and you're just like I'm just gonna watch this video and I'm gonna watch it from start to finish and that's the only video I need. That's a good sign. If you're like most people and you're typing in your keywords and you're like scrolling through and saying, is this the hottest missionary girl or is that the hottest missionary girl? And it's like a hunt, right? Where you're searching for the same way people kind of use dating apps these days. It's like, where's the unicorn, huh? And you become a zombie where you're like scrolling through. That's again another sign of like, maybe. And
then also like instead of watching the beautiful storyline of the porn video,
which most porn videos have beautiful storylines, like very sensual, a lot of foreplay, a lot of communication,
very good acting skills.
Yeah.
And so you fast forward, and you just get to the favorite position.
Exactly. Like I like doggy style, so let me just fast forward into the doggy
just
style.
Just write doggy.
Exactly.
That's even better now.
But this is how modern porn tube sites. It's like you search for your keyword terms, and so also what happens is you get highly. Like the thing that turns you on becomes narrower and narrower, where it's almost like you need, a blonde girl with double D breasts, wearing a mini skirt, and that's the only thing that will really turn you on.
Right.
You get more and more perfectionistic or selective,
and narrow down to what you like,
as opposed to being like open to, oh my gosh, I can be attracted to everyone.
So which can harm when it goes to real life. So in real life, you actually can meet someone who you have this amazing connection, and you are attracted to their personality, and then just because they don't look like your favorite porn star, it's like sorry.
Exactly, and that's a common thing. People are saying it, a lot of the clients I work with, where they're like, they met this amazing person. And maybe it even did fit in line with what they like, but then they get bored. Because, again, their brain is addicted to the novelty.
Right.
They're like, I need something new. Even though there's nothing wrong, they're fully attracted. It might be the picture perfect of what they want. They're like, I need something new, right? So that's another one of the ways that it can affect people.
So how many people you worked so far with? Do you know?
I mean, it depends on if you're talking about direct one-on-one clients that I've worked with, or people that have gone through my courses or seen my resources.
So you have courses which they can kind of pay for, and then just go through the course. They don't really need you or okay.
I mean, the best, like if people really want to that extra level support, working with me is the best way. But going through the course teaches them what they need to know about recovering from addiction, because it's not. The biggest mistake that people think is that they just need to stop watching porn, and they try to use willpower. They just like, okay, let me just stop watching, and if I can get to 30 days, then I'll be fixed. The truth is, real recovery takes a lot more.
Right.
Because the thing is, addiction, I'm not against porn. I'm not against anything. I'm against addiction. And addiction is a response to pain. It's an escape mechanism.
Yeah, just like anything,
Most people aren't watching porn because they're horny. They're watching porn because they don't want to be stressed. They want to switch off, they just want to not think, and they just want to be distracted. And so you have to do the inner work of building, that inner power, the inner fulfillment, so that you don't reach out to porn.
Right. And then I think one of the misconceptions probably out there is that, is it me being horny and watching the porn, finding that escapism, or is it me, like when someone porn associates, especially for men, I can't speak for women. For men, associates with jerking off, right? So you watch porn, and then you don't watch like just a film, It's like taking notes, which I usually do when I watch a film. It's like, ooh, that's
yes, that was a good stunt.
That's what happened. Yeah. And talking about porn, they have a lot of stunts in there. But I would be like, let's say, if I watch porn, I would be jerking off. I love when I talk about this right now.
Welcome to the Renars podcast, ladies and gentlemen.
We talk about everything. And but then if you jerk off without porn, so that's considered to be healthy.
I would say so. What I tell my clients, especially in the beginning, if somebody's addicted to porn and they're trying to break free, is allow yourself to masturbate without porn.
Right.
I think there's a lot of really interesting stuff around semen retention, self-mastery around that kind of stuff, like learning how to go through periods where you're practicing that kind of practice. But in the beginning, I tell my clients, look, if you're horny enough to masturbate without porn, go for it.
Right.
Because it's a sign that you're actually horny. If you need the porn in order to masturbate, it's a sign that you're just trying to escape.
Right. Because thinking about my experience, I could masturbate without porn if I haven't kind of masturbated for a while or whatever. But if you do watch porn for quite often, then masturbation without porn just doesn't happen. That I like there's a word masturbation instead of always saying jerking off.
It sounds more refined. Yes, I don't jerk off. I masturbate.
I masturbate.
Because
I'm a master of turbulence. Masturbate. That's how it came. What? And and then this other thing straight away I can ask you. I don't know if this is like your field or not, but the whole idea about ejaculation and like how unhealthy it actually can be for men. So as far as I know, and hearing like from the Multi-Orgasmic Man, that is a book which I started reading, but it was so boring. Yeah. But the whole idea, I understood that it was basically masturbation is not very good. Ejaculation is not very good. Yeah. Masturbating to get to the point like you're almost ejaculating, that's kind of good, whatever. And then they teach you all these ways, and that comes from Asia, from specifically from China, I think, And they practice all that, and then men can actually being multi-orgasmic as well as just like women, but they just need to train and practice how to do it. So, and then I remember there was kind of an age graph when like from
how often you can masturbate.
Yeah, from like puberty till like 20. There's that amount, and then as older you get, as less ejaculation would be good for your body. But then here you go, and this is something I remember I was listening to Joe Rogan's podcast, and he was talking about that as well. And I kind of can agree to that. Like sometimes I want to masturbate because I feel, as you said, like it takes your mind away, but also like I feel a little bit stressed or whatever. And every time I would actually ejaculate, I would feel like, I'm calming down. Yeah. And that's kind of good for me. But then at the same time, they say like, it's not good for you. So where do you stand on this?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought it up. There's a lot of beauty and a lot of truth.
People are always happy when I bring up about me masturbating and ejaculating.
I'm so happy that you talked about yourself masturbating, because I would really like to comment on it.
This is so good.
Semen retention. So, and multi-orgasmic. So what it is there's a lot of truth that like if you're masturbating too much, and we all know it, the moment you ejaculate and you release, you feel this like, you feel relaxed, you feel calm, but it also kind of takes away your energy, your power. You're not going to jump into a boxing ring and fight 10 rounds.
That's why fighters are not allowed, and all the athletes, any high-level athletes are not allowed to ejaculate before like 5 or 6 days, whatever.
So the question that I like to ask is, whether or not you've gone to an extreme. Where is the extreme that you've gone to having detrimental effects for other reasons? And what I see is it's beneficial to try it out, to practice, to do a 30-day semen retention challenge, just for your own self-awareness and self-mastery. But a lot of guys who are trying to break free from porn and taking on semen retention at the same time end up being too high strung about it, where they end up getting like almost OCD and like shaming themselves if they do ejaculate, where it's just like, dude, relax, like go masturbate, you know, it's okay. You don't have to be this like Spartan god that, you know, never touches his genitals. And it's like, I think having a middle ground approach where you're not looking at porn 3 hours a day every day, but you also don't have to be like this semen retention Taoist master.
What's the moderation? Like moderation in anything, basically.
For masturbation?
Yeah, man. Hey, look at you. Doing so well. I'm so proud of you.
Sorry, for jerking off. You know, it's like, it's like you just have to figure it out for yourself.
But still, there's scientifically, I mean, like, as far as I understand, like, I was actually recently looked it up because me and my lady were wondering, so what exactly the semen consists of, right? Well, the product you ejaculate. So the sperm of it is only like very, very tiny part of it. Rest of it is these super valuable minerals and vitamins and all of that, and that's what they say. Like, and before that, you think it's a joke, like, oh, if a girl swallows the man swallows other men's semen, then it's like drinking a protein shake. So, so it's very like nutritious and all that stuff. Like so. And then, you know, a lot of guys were just like, yeah, you should do it because that's why. And girls are like, oh, you just made this up. It's not real. But it's real. So that means that you losing all of that good stuff out of your body. So now the question is like how long it takes to regenerate that, how much energy that takes. And totally. Is there like a certain like certain amount of times a week? Is it like what they said in that Multi-Orgasmic Man, in that book? So like for this age, this amount of times a week, and what do you think?
Personally, so again, I'm not an expert in this. I'm not a Taoist master, and I'm not a multi-orgasmic male that's having full body kind of orgasms and transmuting my sexual energy in that way. There are people that do that. To me, I don't know, but I don't really care because again, I just see how many people are getting so high strung about trying to do that, that for me, it's healthier to say, listen, I might not be, like if you're a peak athlete, you know, if you're competing for world championships, maybe this is something you want to look into. If you're just a normal person that's trying to live a healthy life, I think it's better to live in a balanced way. It's like, for example, with nutrition. Is it probably better to never have any kind of sugar or any processed food? It's like, yeah, probably just eat, you know, just meat and some fruits, and that's probably the healthiest thing. But how many people I see getting into like mental health issues because they have one piece of chocolate and they're like, oh my God, I'm a horrible person. It's like, dude,
that's crazy.
Go have a fucking cookie, you know, relax a bit, because so many people are so high strung. And it's like, if you have that passion, if you have that interest, if you want to practice semen retention, go for it. But I'd say it's much better to like learn how to be balanced in your approach.
It's just a question for them to identify when it's too much. That's kind of a like, so how do you know? It's probably, you know, when if you think about it all the time, like, oh, I'm going to masturbate, like obviously that's something unhealthy. And how do you know? And also when you talked about athletes, so what do you think about this concept that people who do train more, they actually produce more semen, or they are more sexually active? What was there's something, again, that's, I think I heard whether Joe Rogan was talking about that, but there's something to do when athletes, because there's more certain hormone is produced, so
growth
they
hormone or something,
so they would more likely would be more horny or more does that ring the bell?
Maybe, but I've seen a lot of people who are like video gamers who never get off their desk chair who are horny as fuck. So you know, it's like right. Yeah. How to know if you're masturbating too much? Again, all of this comes down to self-awareness, and this gets back to that question of like, what are the effects of porn? You have to start looking at your life and being aware, because again, a lot of the consequences are long-term, like how you're treating the women in your life or your partners. Some of these consequences, you know, it's like they're not immediate things, but you have to have the self-awareness to see the patterns in your life. Like, oh, am I always leaving, you know, relationships because I get bored? even though the woman is perfect, kind of thing. And those are things that take self-awareness. Also, noticing the effect on your concentration. You know, like one of the effects of porn is the mind fog, the brain fog. Like you can't really focus as well. And then when you go 30-day detox and stop watching porn, you have all this clarity.
Yeah, right.
You can think straight, you know. So all of this is like experimenting. Like experiment with semen retention.
Right.
Experiment with giving up porn. Experiment with masturbating.
Hallelujah, brother.
You know?
Experiment with semen retention. Come on.
Yeah.
Okay, let's have a break. We smashed 1 hour already.
Nice.
I was like, listen, baby, whatever you want,
Yeah.
but you have to organize it, and I'm just going to be there, okay?
Oh,
And she's
really?
like, oh, yeah, that's the best present ever. It's like, fuck. Okay, we are back. And we talking about porn, my favorite subject. Okay, this is about the last thing we're talking about, the how to discipline yourself and look at that and figuring out when it's too much and when it's something not right. And I actually thought about straight away the question: what do you think about when couples who've been together for a longer period of time, they feel there's there's not the spark, but there's just like they lose that lust kind of to each other, and then some of them, which I never done. Which I'm honestly never done, that if I would be sleeping with my girl, I would be watching porn at the same time. So I never done that before, but some couples experiment with that. And what do you think about that?
Yeah, so I'm glad you brought this up, because I want to make sure it's clear for the people listening. Like, again, I have nothing against porn. I think some people use it in a healthy way, particularly women. Actually, there's some fascinating research about the difference between how porn affects men and how it affects women. And I think we live in a society where, for many women, their sexuality is suppressed for a lot of different reasons. And porn can actually be a benefit to help them, embrace their sexuality, open up their sexuality. And the studies have shown that it can actually help them feel more attracted to their partner. The more porn a woman watches, she will feel, more interested in being with her partner. In general, the average, not every case. Whereas the research shows the opposite is true. The more porn a man watches, the less interested he is in being with his partner, in being with a woman. So it's important to understand the difference between how it affects men and women, because, to be honest, I get a lot of pushback from women when I'm saying, hey, porn addiction this, porn addiction that, and a lot of women are like, how dare you say this about porn addiction? It's weird. Because you would think that women would be like, yeah, porn is so harmful and it's disrespectful.
So women actually say porn is good. Like, watch as much as you can. Is that what you're saying?
It's very nuanced, because some
what
women...
What kind of women have you been hanging out with?
Well, it's very interesting, because some women are like, know what kind of porn is out there, and they're like, thank God somebody's talking about this, because this is not what we want in bed. This is not real intimacy. Not every woman wants to be choked and slapped and called a slut, kind of thing.
Just some of them.
Just some of them. And that's true. Some women really like that.
Yeah.
And I want to, like, kink is a thing. And it's like some people are into that. But the thing, and this gets back to the topic about young kids, is like the problem is that 95% of the porn on places like Pornhub is abusive, degrading, and violent towards women.
Right.
And that's when a 10-year-old boy starts watching porn and he's seeing that every day for the next 10 years.
And if they don't have a proper sex education.
Which nobody does.
Yeah.
Their sex education comes from porn. And so they're thinking, oh, girls like to be choked, slapped, like all the horrible shit that they see because they're getting into all that kind of stuff. Not only that, I talked about this on my Instagram once, that like not a single porn video that I've ever seen has a girl said no to sex. Now, what does that do to the minds of a boy who's watching porn for 10 years and thinking girls are always interested?
Right.
They're always ready.
Yeah.
I don't need to do foreplay. They always want to have sex.
And basically that's where the problem with not even understanding the boundaries of consensual sex.
Exactly.
Sex, yeah.
Because young girls are watching this too. Imagine a young 10-year-old girl watching porn and never seeing a girl speak up for herself.
Right.
Never seeing a girl say, hey, I'm not into that, or please don't, let alone like saying no, like even just communicating about what they want. So many girls and women have problems asking for what they want in sex and communicating because the modeling isn't there. They don't know. They think how can I, tell a guy to do something differently? I've never seen that in any video I've watched. So this is the problem with porn, is that it's influencing what we're expecting in a way that's just not reality. It's the fantasy, which is a fantasy. Some fantasies include.
But you see, this is interesting stuff. Okay, so then the thing what they have to be changing is that these young people shouldn't have that access to these porn movies.
Not necessarily.
Because the way I look at it, just like when I was saying about violent films, like horror films, or like the violent killing and heads blowing up and stuff. So that's where they, when they have mass shootings, they blame these kind of violent films, right?
Or video games where people
video games. Then music. Marilyn Manson. How many times he's been accused of someone doing suicide because listening to their music? When the music says, "Oh, kill yourself," whatever that is. So we basically, and the same also with weapons, like there's so many things, like the gun laws in states. Like, well, I want to have gun laws, or I want to have guns because I want to protect myself, but then they should have a stricter kind of a selection who should have those guns, right? And that's where the problem starts. So it's the selection of who should be watching and who should not be watching. So, but the problem here, especially nowadays, when we have all the pocket devices and whatever, and even if you block your son's phone, there's going to be some other boy in a school or somewhere in a football practice who's going to be like, look, that's the porn there,
Yeah.
And I think that is the massive problem, which is very difficult to tackle. How the hell are you going to do it?
Yeah.
Like back in the days, when I was getting interested into nakedness and stuff, I was watching.
That was the most polite way to say you're just looking at porn. Nakedness. I was getting interested in nakedness.
Very camp as well. Growing up in a small town in Latvia, I remember the first time was actually, it was a public bath. We had a public bath. And because I was very young, so my mom sometimes would take with the ladies, because there's boys and girls, And then I just saw so much nakedness. I was like, what's going on? But I was too young to like kind of
sexualize it.
Yeah, exactly. But then, no phones, nothing. I had a black and white TV where I would be watching the erotica, and it was only in Saturday nights, and I should be at 11 o'clock, they would show the erotica movie, right? You can see a nipple or whatever, but, that was very exciting for me. And I remember I didn't even have the remote control for my TV, so I concocted this thing that the two cables click in, and I put it under my pillow, and then because my mom, she would
walk in.
Yeah, so she would know that she could hear that I'm watching something. Yeah. And then I could just hear steps because she caught me a couple of times before that, right? And then I would jump up and try to turn the shit out. And she's like, what are you doing? And then I was like, one day I turned my head around. It was like the super MacGyver mode. And I'm like, I'm going to make this done, And then I literally had this thing under my pillow, and I would just like unplug it. And she would come in like, oh, what's going on? I was like, so this is how I was, getting into that. And almost in that age, even I would say my parents would say oh, you guys, you're watching all these naked movies. This is crazy. But now it's way too crazy.
Yeah.
It's
too crazy. I mean, and that's the thing. It's the invention of high-speed internet porn has changed the game. Back when it was like nude magazines and even just like VHS tapes, it was a different game.
Yeah.
But now, like there's something called the 3 A's of porn addiction, which is like these 3 things that make porn highly addictive. The accessibility is one, so you can just get it anywhere.
Yeah.
The affordability, it's free. Not all drugs are free, right? And then the anonymity, right? So it's like you can just do it anywhere. And in particular, the infinite variety of what exists, and the fact that it's getting highly skewed towards things that are more taboo or tittillating or exciting. The crazy amount of choking, slapping, anal, step-sister porn and stepmother porn. It's like it's just moving in that direction.
You just counted all my favorites.
Yeah. I was just looking at your browser history. Stepsister does anal while getting choked.
Oh my God. Wow. But
sorry folks, this is an X-rated podcast.
Very X. It's gonna be beep 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 beep. That's the podcast.
50% is just beeps.
Yeah, just beeps.
Yeah. But hey, for those of you out there, this is what porn is like.
Yeah,
It's like,
and exactly, and people have to talk about it. That's the thing. Like, we just sit in our darkness and we're watching all of that, but no one talks about it.
And here's the thing. It's like you talked about earlier, like, well, people have always been making these arguments of like, oh, well, mass shootings, that's because video games. And it's, maybe there's truth to that. But the question is, does that apply to this case? Like, and it does. The fact is we're seeing these kind of sexual behaviors in teens and preteens. You know, preteens are going to their school counselors talking about how they were pressured into anal sex and they don't know what to do. And like doctors are seeing an increased amount of young girls coming in with anal injuries.
Wow.
Which is insane, like 1,000-fold% increase in young girls.
Yeah.
And it's because of what people are seeing in porn and thinking is normal and natural.
Or maybe in those areas, just the Catholic churches are very strong. Because it doesn't count sex if it's anal. Oh, no. That's a very old thing. People, just as old as Catholics.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is crazy. And like, you know, giggles there, giggles here. But when you have your own kids, and
Exactly.
you know, that is something very different.
Yeah. I mean, and the question is like, what do we do about it? We don't really know. We know that education is the best thing. Like, you can't ban something. You can't just make porn illegal because, one, it won't work. You know, it'll just go underground. You just need to educate people, you know, to teach kids that, hey, this is not reality, this is fantasy, and to have better sex education. And teach kids about what, one of the biggest issues with porn is it just doesn't teach young boys and girls about what healthy intimacy looks like. And
it's interesting, though, certain countries, they have certain like old school dogmas also based on religious stuff. I have examples. So when I used to work as a stripper back in the UK, one of our dancers, he was a high school teacher and very intelligent, very interesting guy. His dad actually is also the head teacher in one of the schools, like always been. And so he was performing with us and as you know, Magic Mike show, right? So we were performing like we just undressed to our shorts, so it was like a cabaret kind of thing. But he would go full Monty, so he would end. He would be the ending of the first or second half. But also he did porn, right? And someone found out about this in the school, and you know, obviously told to whatever. The bosses, administration, and they fired him straight away. And then his dad, who is being a head teacher for so many years, he's like, you can fight this. There's no law saying that you're not should be discrimination, and all that. And Benedict, and great shout out. He's an amazing guy. I love him. And he basically went and fought for it, and he won.
Yeah.
And he won, and they said, like, well, you can come back and teach. And he's like, fuck you, I'm not coming here back. But there was, like, a lot. And then when he won that case, he became a very nationally, well-known. Like, he would go all these talk shows, and he would really, like, fight for people's rights. And, like, you know, why porn, for example, is having such a bad rap. And this is the thing. Now he lives in Amsterdam, actually. He got married, and he moved there. And how in Holland they have their rules and their perception of porn is so different. It's so normalized. So, and because and then at the same time in Holland they would have way less cases of rape and all that but they also, as I understand, they do talk about the sexual education and all those things, but porn is available and it's not a taboo. But then in countries like UK where there's like, no, that's big no, that's devil, that's all of that, and that's where these kids are suppressing this stuff, and then they go lose their shit. So
there's so much to unpack there. Like, the places where it's suppressed, where sexuality is suppressed, is where addiction is the worst. You know, it's like in the places where it's celebrated, places, because I live in Amsterdam, you know, and you know, places where sexuality is celebrated and you let go of the shame of sexuality is when you can actually have a healthy relationship to it. And I totally agree with, like, again, I'm not against porn, and I actually, you know, it's like one of my close friends is an escort, and I actually am pro sex workers. I think sex work is actually something, you know, that people can actually benefit from. It's like, you know, going to a massage or something. It's healing to have that human-to-human interaction. it's the craziness of what's going on in the porn industry and how people don't know how to regulate themselves around it. That's the issue. So there's nothing against, porn actors or actresses if people want to make their own porn or do that. It's whether or not people have the emotional tools to regulate themselves in this thing that is potentially highly addictive. It has the accessibility, the affordability, and the anonymity, and the potential for becoming addicted to it, where we need to give people resources for how to use it in a healthy way, if they're going to use it. It's like sugar. It's like we shouldn't ban sugar.
Porn is exactly like sugar.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like cookies.
It's like cookies. Porn and cookies the same.
I actually really feel this way, though. It's like, I don't have anything against it. It's like, but if you're using it too much, if you're eating too much sugar, it's not good for you.
Interesting about, you mentioned about escort. So I have another friend also was in the stripping industry, and he was doing escort. And but he was, I was like, really, it was so interesting. So he said, I started as normal escort, whatever, but then he had a specific kind of a niche. So he would go to disabled people. Some of them never had sex in their lives. And then he created that as his mission, to help these people to actually explore their sexuality, or to even try the being sexual and stuff. And he said, like, felt like I was doing therapy. I was like healing them. I was like, obviously it makes total sense. But like, how many people out there would go like, I'm gonna go and do this kind of stuff? And he would go also to very old people, someone who haven't had sex like in 30 years or something. It's like,
that's beautiful.
Yeah.
I really, it's like, here's one of the things. We need human connection. We need intimacy. We need physical touch. And people aren't getting that, And so, like your friend, and I think escorts are actually doing a very valuable role of like giving people, again, you can also get addicted to escorts, and that's an issue.
But the thing
you
is
can
that you can get addicted to anything.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But
anything.
But
some things are more addictive than others.
Yeah. You know what's fascinating though? Like in the US, for example, where prostitution is illegal, making porn is not illegal. But
you can start from 16, is it?
What, making porn?
Yeah.
Probably.
You can't drink from 21. You have to wait till 21 to have beer, but you can do porn.
Yeah.
That's what they were talking about.
But what's crazy is it's essentially the same thing, just in one of them, you have a camera in the corner of the room. You could be a prostitute and be like, oh, no, we're making porn, and just put a camera in there and be like, it's literally legal. The same. Like, people who don't have a problem with porn, but for some reason have a problem with prostitution, are not thinking straight. You know what I mean?
Well, Americans in general, they're not very well known for thinking straight.
That's true.
Just saying.
No offense to my countrymen, but we aren't. For those of you who are in the U.S. who have never been outside the U.S., we're not really seen as like
this camera.
Yeah,
you
we're
can
not
look there all the time.
Yeah.
I like how we're dressing the whole room is that camera.
You guys in the front.
Wow.
But it's like one of the reasons I love talking about this is there's so much nuance to this topic around porn and addiction and sex work and digital habits, and there's so many conversations that we need to have around it, but we're just not having.
So understanding that we can't really forbid and close up the porn shop, do you think there will be something done towards changing it? So as you say, like, is there too much anal, too much choking, whatever? But obviously they make those things just because there's demand.
Yeah.
If there wouldn't be demand, they wouldn't make them.
Yeah.
So...
But it's like the cigarette industry. It's like where we are now with the porn industry is like where we were 40 years ago or whatever it was with the cigarette and tobacco industry.
Yeah, we have posters of porn everywhere with John Wayne in a cowboy hat having anal.
I mean, apparently, like Pornhub does all these PR events where they're like hosting parties and like doing shit and making it. They're like selling Pornhub as a brand.
I saw we did stand-up comedy here in Deus. I saw this girl, just massive T-shirt, all big sign Pornhub on her T-shirt, just walking in like, hey guys, what's up?
And this is the thing. It's like, it's being advertised and it's being introduced to young kids. Like back in the day, the tobacco industry was trying to advertise to young kids to get new users.
Calms your nerves.
Yeah. And the same is being done, now with the porn industry. It's being promoted to teens and to young kids. So the question is like, what's going to happen? I do think there are going to be some more regulations.
From just like with
government.
cigarettes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Not to completely ban it outright, but maybe like, on a cigarette box, it says this is bad for your lungs. It's like, maybe there's going to be similar things. It's like in front of every porn video, there's going to be like,
this video is bad for your penis.
something, or better, like age checks. Like in the US right now, you just log on. You just, you just go Pornhub.com.
Yeah, but you have a little sign going on. Are you 18 years old? Yes.
Yeah.
So what are you going to get?
Yeah, that little checkbox really does a great job.
It's amazing. Yeah, we got it.
Yeah, got it figured out. No innovation needed, none at all. To be honest, I don't know what's going to happen in the future, and I don't really know what the solution is. Like for me, I'm working, with adults and people who recognize they have a problem. Because that's the thing is, once you even recognize you have a problem, it's not simple to break free.
Of course not.
It's like you can know, holy shit, this is not good for my relationships. It's not good for my life. I'm wasting time on it. But it's still really challenging to stop because for many people, it's a crutch. It's their escape mechanism.
And talking about, the clients you had in the past, how many clients you would have or did you have any clients who would be doing like... what they called it, not just watching porn, but they have the interactional porn, like when they actually on a
like
camera,
a webcam.
webcam and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Is that a big percentage of like your clients and people you?
Not really. I mean, it's some of them, but it's just people wasting a lot of time on it. A lot of the people I work with, I tend to work with more entrepreneurs, business owners, professionals, and they're people who are just realizing like, even if it weren't for all the ways that it's fucking with their brain, it's just wasting precious time.
But the webcams, while I was mentioning about that, it's very, very expensive. So the webcam, if they do that, so that is like a gambling addiction. Yeah. So you can just lose all your money and just having that addiction. And I actually have a friend of mine as well who I kind of didn't really thought about him and just remembered when I mentioned the webcam, he's addicted in that and he wasted so much money.
Yep.
And then he said like he's a porn addict and so he would also pay for escorts or prostitutes and stuff like that.
Yeah. So it can be any of the ways that it takes money away. It can be that it, you end up going to escorts. It can be webcams. It can be OnlyFans. It's just like any of the ways that you can get out of control with your spending.
But the great thing is that there's so many options for us to choose from. OnlyFans,
there's so many flavors.
Yeah. It's just like buying an ice cream nowadays. You just go, there's like 150 different flavors.
Yeah.
We're actually talking about ice cream.
Just go back, watch the whole episode again, and just replace every time we say porn with ice cream.
Say ice cream.
Young kids are getting into ice cream these days.
That's a good one. We went to ice cream place. So those who may be here in Bali, Renars in that area, and there was this. I never tried ice cream like that. I forgot the name of it, but it was like it wasn't that many flavors, like maybe 12 flavors, but all of them were so original and so tasty. I was like, whoa!
Where's this place?
I'm gonna let you know. After the show.
Okay.
That place was insane. And we went there around 11 o'clock and it was open. And
Renars.
Yeah, really good ice cream. Yeah, people, check out the ice cream. Renars. That was my little bit from my stand-up about Renars and the song. It's great that I explain my shit. It always works.
You've lost the rest of us, so it's good that you're trying to explain.
There you go. Okay, let's go back to porn. Okay, I ask you different kind of questions, and obviously I don't know much about it and what to ask you. Do you want to tell me something, and what do you find as the biggest challenges for you to working with people? What do you, how do you feel? What do you think, people like you to be a coach in this? How to get your training? How do you? Yeah, tell us about that.
Yeah. Gosh, where do I begin?
Start with training. Let's say so your background, just tell us a little bit more again and remind me of your background, what was helpful for what you do now.
Yeah, I guess we didn't talk about any of that.
No.
So my background really is in meditation. So when I realized I had a porn addiction, it wasn't just porn addiction. I realized that the way I was living my life wasn't bringing me any fulfillment or happiness. I was a stellar student, setting the curves on all my exams. I had a lot of friends, captain of a sports team. I was doing really well in life.
But what kind of sports?
Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
What belt are you?
Blue belt. I stopped basically after college.
Wait, what is it?
I know. This was back in the day before it was popular.
Oh, okay,
so
okay.
back then, Blue Belt was like, oh shit.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah.
Okay.
These
sorry.
days, it's like,
Yeah.
your grandma can have a Blue Belt. But back then, I was the top dog.
You were the dog.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
But anyway, so I was doing well athletically, academically, all this stuff. And, like my life on the outside looked like it was great, but on the inside, I was always, anxious, insecure, always like horny, and never felt like I had enough. Like always very kind of slutty, but not fulfilled. Like,
But around 18, that's like kind of everyone.
21, 22, yeah, 19, 20.
I think still that's fine.
But what I realized is like I was successful at everything I put my mind to, but it wasn't bringing me. It wouldn't actually make a difference.
Right.
I would achieve the thing. I was like, oh yeah, I got that thing. And then I was like, it didn't really make a difference.
Yeah.
What else do I need to do? And I realized that like, I didn't know what happiness really was and what actually made people happy. So I got really interested in this topic of what is happiness and is it even possible? So I started reading these books, and I found this book, one of the ones I mentioned on my list, called Happiness.
Yeah, we can talk about it later. You're not allowed to talk about it now.
All right.
Yeah, skip it.
I'll just say that it got me into meditation and Buddhist philosophy. And the main thing that got me into it was realizing like happiness and inner fulfillment are skills that you can train. And you can actually, like, depending on how you're relating to what you have, that's where your happiness is. Two people can have the same piece of chocolate cake, and one person will be, a Karen and say, fuck this, it's not organic enough, whatever, and be miserable. And another person might be starving and say, oh my God, like I'm so grateful that I finally have food to nourish myself with. And how you relate to what you have is so much more important for your happiness than what you have. It's not to say that what you have isn't important. You need things, food, clothing, shelter, all that. But how you relate to what's happening is more important than anything else. Because you can have all the riches in the world, and if you don't know how to appreciate it, you'll be miserable. So anyways, that got me into meditation. I ended up going to India, started doing these things called Vipassana retreats, these kind of 10-day silent meditation retreats, and those changed my life because I realized that was a way I could train my mind to be happier and to break free from some of the compulsive behaviors I had, not just around porn, but just around unhappiness, judgment, whatever it is. I
Like
needed
reactions again, like those just
my
reacting
habitual
about things, yeah.
reactions, whether I'm like, this isn't good enough, instead to say, wow, I'm so grateful that I am where I am.
Right.
So ended up doing a lot of Vipassana retreats, a lot of these, and, training as a Buddhist monk in Myanmar, started teaching meditation. So the background is really in meditation.
Are you a monk?
I was a monk.
What? You take your cloth out, that's it?
Yeah,
You're done?
it's called disrobing.
Really?
Yeah.
Disrobing, that's like a title of my sex tape.
Oh, shit! Comes full circle.
Disrobing.
Yeah. But basically you can ordain as a monk, and then you disrobe is when you're like saying, okay, I'm going back to the lay life.
Yeah. And they give you all your
shit back.
Your passwords to your porn.
Exactly. Like, here's your bookmarks again.
Username.
Yeah.
How long did you do that? How long were you monk?
The monk just a month. So
just 1 month.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So I was going to Myanmar for a month-long silent retreat. So a month of no speaking, no writing, no reading.
How was that?
It was amazing. Yeah.
How was the first couple of days?
I mean, at that point, I had already done like 15 Vipassana retreats.
Oh, okay.
And so it's like, I knew what I was expecting.
Oh, okay. So
like
it wasn't telling you.
Yeah, it wasn't new at all. It was, the only thing different was this one was going to be a little bit longer, and I was going to shave my head, and wish I didn't have much to shave. But, then I put on some robes and took the vows and stuff.
How long ago was this?
2017, 2018, 6 years ago. Yeah, something like that.
So that basically changed your kind of life's trajectory.
Well, the meditation retreat started 13 years ago. That's what changed. The becoming a monk, that was like, I was already well on my path.
Whatever.
Yeah, it really was.
This is the PR thing.
It was. It was kind of like, it'd be nice to
I
be
just
able
want to have that
say,
video just roping myself.
Exactly. Upload it to OnlyFans. Jeremy finally disrobes.
Oh my God. Finally.
Yeah. Anyway, so my background of really helping people comes from my meditation practice, but then eventually got trained as a coach, got ICF is the International Coaching Federation, So I did, a year-long training, ended up getting certified and then accredited through the ICF. And so now I do executive coaching. So that's where my training comes from. But a lot of it is also just my own research into addiction, recovery, habits. What does it actually take to break free from an addiction? Because there's one study that just is so mind-blowing. Have you heard of the rat park experiment?
Rat Park experiment when they were giving coke them and stuff.
Yeah, getting morphine to the rats.
Yeah, morphine or the community. So, and then if they without community, they're gonna choose the morphine, or if they with the community, they rather choose community. Basically. And then the addiction doesn't really happen. I think something like that.
Something like that. So basically, they took these rats in cages and they were studying the effect of morphine. And they found out if you put a rat in a cage and give it morphine in the water, it'll sit and drink the morphine until it dies because it's addicted. But then this guy had this insight. He's like, well, it's kind of a shitty life. Like, what if we give them, running wheels and other rats to play with, and we give them kind of a nice environment? And they did the same and gave them the morphine water and found out that they barely touched the water. And what it shows is that it's not about the substance. It's not about how addictive a substance is. It's about what's going on in your life that makes you reach out for addiction. So with porn, it's the same thing. Like, yeah, porn's an addictive substance, but if you want to break free, you have to give yourself that kind of rat park. You need social connections. You need a sense of purpose and meaning. You need all these other things that give you a life that you don't need to escape from. So that's a really important part of recovery.
Yeah, because that's what I say about the addicts. Anything alcohol, drugs, is another way to put it. They don't want to face themselves.
Yeah.
So they kind of run away also from themselves, and then if they have a community around them, then it takes their mind away. So they communicate with people, but then they by themselves they're like, oh shit, like this is who I am. Let's watch porn. Let's do other things.
Yeah.
And I think also porn is an amazing tool for procrastinators.
Yeah.
I don't know if definitely you heard that before, and some of your patients would have that. But like I can say like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. What could I do? I could do that.
Yeah.
And then the best part is like when you get it done, you just kind of even more like
exactly. You have even less energy.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Because I gave all my vitamins out.
Exactly. That's
the good stuff.
Precious phosphorus.
Yeah. So that's why I just get it in a cup and then
you put your semen back in the cup.
Save it for another day.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Once in a while, I think about those scenarios where some friends want to pull a prank on you and they do something to you, but they don't tell you straight away. They show that you or tell you like 3 months down the line.
Yeah.
So there's someone like...
By the way, that birthday cake that we gave you that slice of, that icing.
Yeah. And then without even saying, they just send you a video.
Oh, shit.
That's how bad is my mind. I'm very naughty.
Yeah. Should I be worried about what's in this water right now?
No, it's just a roofie.
Okay.
Just the normal thing. Yeah, ecstasy roofie.
Yeah. Gonna have fun tonight. Is that why all the cameras are?
Yeah, exactly, exactly. This is gonna change into a different kind of table very quickly. Like you see, that's white thing is gonna fall down. And then it's gonna open the door. Who's your daddy? Oh my God! And then I will show you that video 2 months from now.
Yeah.
Because coaching in general is interesting. I actually did a little bit training for life coaching when I was in UK, mainly because I was just very curious about kind of like what is behind it. Because a friend of mine, she did this course and quite expensive. It like cost like £3,000 or £4,000. Well, I felt it was expensive because I would never pay for some kind of course like this much of money. And I said, I arranged with them, like, I'm not going to pay you all of it. I'm going to pay you with like installments. Yeah. And if I decide I don't want to do it anymore, I can just walk away. And they're like, yeah. So I did like 1/3 of it and I walked away. But these life coaches, these people just come from very fucked up backgrounds and they're like, what should I do in my life? I'm not sure. I'm going to be a life coach.
I'm going to tell other people how to live.
Exactly. And then you like, look at these losers. Well, maybe not all of them.
Hey, we're in Bali, so there's a lot of them.
Oh, there's a lot of them. You throw a rock, you're going to get a Russian or a coach, or if it's a Russian coach.
Russian life coach.
I teach you how to make potatoes too. Yes. Come to my house.
We love Russians, by the way.
Yeah, Russians are the best. Yeah, we like the best. And And yeah, I just realized like anyone can do it, but you know, obviously it doesn't matter. You know, you want to study new thing, learn new thing, and they kind of were saying that they are qualified, and they actually, if you graduate they program, then you're a qualified life coach, whatever that means.
Yeah.
Because there's no like strength. There's no place who said like, well, that's a qualified life coach, so he or she can teach you how to do these things.
So there kind of is. And that's what the International Coaching Federation is.
Right.
And that's why when you're applying for a coaching course, you want to check, is it accredited by the ICF or not? Because there's a lot of coaching programs out there where they'll be like, we'll train you to be a life coach in, you know, this 2-hour course that you take on Udemy, like, and you'll get your certificate. Anybody can get a certificate that says they're a coach, whether or not it's actually accredited by an institution that's reliable. Is another thing, because there's a lot of shitty things out there that, you know, will give people a certificate where they can say, hey, I'm a certified coach, certified life coach.
Yeah, but in the same time, like, question is, are they going to be following all those guidelines what they learned? Like, because you can deviate and you can be whatever life coach you want to be. Yeah. So let's say you are carrying that, just like you graduate Oxford University of Economics, right? And you just go and now practicing law or business, whatever that is. But then you add all these other knowledge, other stuff what you have, and then it's like almost saying, for doctors it's different, obviously. Like he's qualified doctor, or he's a lawyer who has been accepted by the bar, or they have to be part of this bar, whatever thing is. And
why is that different though?
And that's what I'm trying to figure out, because I think this is more about when it really kind of matters, when the lives can be on a line, like for doctors or for lawyers who can, like, you know, get you in a prison and there's life sentence or whatever. But this is the thing, it's a kind of gray area, because I also believe someone who spent about 7 years in academia, so I get my bachelor's degree, my master's degree, and who am I now? Am I qualified businessman? No, I'm not. Right. I'm like, I have a couple kind of ideas, and this piece of paper is going to help me if I'm going to look for work. But even anyone who is a wise employer, they would be like, but I want to know what's your experience. Tell me what is like, how you as a person. I don't give a fuck that you have that fancy paper. So what does that prove? It proves that you just follow these rules and you learn certain things and it can regurgitate them for like that period of time. That doesn't matter that you are the G. In your cases, like for coaches, as I understand, is the person who is your patient decides that. After first 3-4 whatever sessions, they were like, I think this works, or I think it doesn't work, or it helps me or it doesn't help me.
So there's a couple of things to say. One is, you're totally right. Like somebody who has an ICF coaching certification, there's no guarantee that they're going to be a good coach. And in fact, there's a lot of people with those certifications that aren't good coaches, right? So you never know. It is a good first sign to know, because it's a lot of training. It's, you know, many hours of coaching practice. There's, you know, you're going through module. It's not like a weekend course where you like pop over to Ubud and they give you a stamp at the end of the thing. It's like you spend a year of your life. So it's a good sign that at least somebody has gone through the rigor of some training. And then the question is, after knowing that, can you then trust them? And there's a couple ways to know. Is one is try it out and see how you feel about them. Also, if the transformation that they're promising you is something that they've done before, you know they've been through it. So for example, me breaking free from porn addiction, that's one thing. You work with a personal trainer who shows you their before and after photos where they were fat, overweight, and, you know, obese or whatever, and now they're ripped and, you know, hopefully they're not
but you
using
can
steroids.
make up your sob story about you being addicted to porn.
I could. Would I have this much insight and information?
you just love porn. You just, I don't know. I'm not addict. I just liked it.
But it's true. The thing is, it's like, so here's the other thing that I would love to say about coaching, because I think it's important, is that most people who want to be life coaches think that, you know, what it means to be a coach is to tell people what to do. It's like, I'm going to be a life coach because I know what people should do, and I'm going to tell this person how they can fix their problem. Real coaching, in my opinion, and in the opinion of the ICF, the coach isn't there to tell you what to do or give you opinions. The coach is there to support you on your journey of finding your own pathway forward and help you remember your own strength. So in the coaching work that I do, with my clients, I don't actually tell them what to do. I help them figure out their own pathway forward.
Yeah. Just give them little nudges. I remember that from my training as well.
And it's not even nudges. You're supporting them to nudge themselves. Like nudging is still kind of like, hey, go in that direction. A real coach is agnostic. Like, hey, I don't know what the solution is. I bet you do, because you're a badass motherfucker. One of the core components of a real coaching relationship is if you can see the greatness in your client.
Right.
When
and
they
if you
can't see
you
it.
Just turn around and walk away.
If you can't see the greatness, exactly.
There's nothing to work here with. Sorry, buddy.
Yeah. No, I've turned clients down because I can't see their greatness.
Really?
And I'm like, hey, I'm not the right coach for you.
What's your turning down percentage?
I don't want to say.
Of course you don't.
But it's true. It's like, the thing is like, I only want to work with people where I really can see their greatness.
And also it's to see like whether you actually fit, you're a good fit.
Exactly.
It's obviously it's a chemistry. It's
a chemistry thing.
Yeah. And if it's not, then it's
there's
just
another
really
coach for them who can see their greatness. But I really believe that like the people I work with, I'm inspired by them. And I get to be there to champion them and to call them out on their bullshit. Because friends can't do that.
Yeah.
And so my role as a coach is when somebody comes to me and says, yeah, I didn't do that thing we talked about last week. I'm there to be like, hey, this is the second time you haven't done it. What's going on? And we dive into it. Coach is there to not let them off the hook.
That's why I don't have many friends, because I always call them on their bullshit. But I am. This is the thing. That's how I am. And like, I would struggle with my relationships and stuff. And the thing is, like, people need to hear that, but the question is, how do you deliver them?
Exactly. And that's the emotional intelligence we talked about earlier. Yeah. Difficult conversations. Like, it's one thing to call somebody out.
Right.
It's another thing to do it in a non-violent way.
Yeah.
Say like, hey, are you open to hearing some feedback about something that's going on?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I usually just slap them around a little bit.
Yeah. That works too.
Bad.
Bad human.
Bad human.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything else from you to add about coaching, about your journey and working with people? Like, how would you compare now? So you've been doing this now for 5 years.
The coaching
being
part.
Coaching part for specifically, is it you always only work with the porn addiction, or
no,
there was
it's been a bunch of things, like anxiety,
right.
Self-confidence, but I started talking about my porn addiction and my journey about 5 years ago also,
right?
And so I was kind of doing both at the same time, like creating these resources for men.
I just imagine you have a new patient is like, so we have these options to talk about. It's like,
yeah,
I'm pretty good to talk about porn, anxiety, any of them? No? Oh, okay, sorry, buddy.
I mean, that's kind of what it was. Like, I had a little like, here's what I help people with, and it was like porn addiction, anxiety.
They choose you like a little computer game character.
Creating an avatar.
I can help you with this. I can help you. Yeah. Joking too much? Call Jeremy.
My new punchline.
Nice one. Anything else to add about that and porn addiction?
Yeah. I would say, just probably something we didn't talk too much about, but one of the most important if there's anybody out there listening who's struggling with porn, one of the most important things is
VPN.
Yes, because you don't want to get caught. But in recovery, like, shame and sexual shame is such a huge issue when it comes to porn addiction, and healing your sexual shame is one of the most important things you can do. Like, learning how to not shun your sexuality and think that it's a bad or perverted, but learning how to embrace it in a healthy way. And so just to kind of, for anyone out there listening, like, knowing like, hey, you're not a bad person. You're not a pervert because you watch porn. You're a sexual being, and that's a beautiful aspect of being human. But learning how to embrace that and not suppress it, not hide away from it, not like cover it up, but really embrace it, is a part of the healing journey. Because if you can't embrace your sexuality, it's not going to work. I'm
just embracing that I'm a perv for many years. Yeah. That's what I do.
And that's damn healthy,
No, but on a serious note, especially I think like my partners in the past, I can say like for women, that's been such a huge part that they are so ashamed to talk about like what they like and how they like, and they would literally be in a relationship with someone for a long period of time, and they would never even experience orgasm, or if they would, it would like be like shitty. It's not very great. And then a friend of mine, she was dating this guy for a while, and she would sleep with him just because she thinks that's like her, like a thing she has to do because she's dating him. I was like, how fucked up is that? It's like, he's my boyfriend, so I have to have a sex with him. Like, it's like you live in some ancient times, or like the cave
century,
times, the cave times.
Thank God we don't live in those times.
I'm a woman. I make potato stew and I give sex. Yes, that's what I do.
You sound like a Russian man.
Yeah. That's the caveman people.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Let's talk about. Oh, let's have a break. Let's have a quick break.
Cool.
Yeah. That's a little intro for the third half. Because Jeremy was falling asleep already, so yeah, I need to wake him up. Here we're talking serious business, serious stuff, no joking around. Just about porn. That's it. In the third segment, I usually talk about the kind of books and movies and people, because I always ask to my guests what are their faves, and what I say, know your friends' books and favorite films, and you will know them, kind of thing. And I don't know, it's probably not that true, but it just sounds cool. I will start with the books straight away, because you also mentioned the book Happiness.
Yeah.
And I was just listening it on the audio version. I think I got to the half of it. But the book I listened twice was Man's Search for Meaning, which we can talk about later. But let's talk about the Happiness one, since you start talking about it earlier.
Yeah.
And as far as I could understand from like this book, and for so many other books who talk about happiness, is it's almost like everyone has to have their kind of prism, their way to look at it. What does it mean, happiness? To have kids, to have a company, to have money, to travel around the world. So everyone should almost kind of figure out for themselves what is happiness. Like that's how I kind of see that. But yeah, what do you think? And why this book really changed your perspective, and then you start doing all the meditation and all that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, this book it blew my mind. It changed everything. It's interesting because I've gone back and read it a couple times and recently, and now when I read it, it's just like, oh yeah, well, this is obvious. But at the time, it was revolutionary for me to think that happiness is so much of, and happiness is, it's a term. A lot of people, for them, happiness just means like having a good time,
right?
Or like being smiling and bubbly. But in this book, they're really talking about the kind of happiness that is much more like inner fulfillment, like having that deep sense of inner fulfillment, of living a good life. And what the book really shows is that, so much of it is not about the external conditions, about making everything perfect and always having pleasure and never having any pain, but it's really about cultivating these qualities of mind about how you're relating to your world. Things like compassion, kindness, patience, all these different things that actually lead to that inner quality of inner fulfillment. And then the other mind-blowing thing about this book is that it was written by this Tibetan Buddhist monk who also has a background in molecular biology. He was working on his PhD in France. And so he brings together the scientific world with the spiritual world. And he really showed, for me the first time, was like the concept of neuroplasticity. And that you're hardwiring your mind to think certain thoughts. If you're always thinking angry thoughts, that's going to be the habitual, pathway of the mind. And you can actually train your mind in other directions. And so, again, that was just super insightful for me, especially around my porn addiction stuff, is I was just hardwiring my mind to be filled with lust and craving. So that book really opened my eyes to like, hey, I can actually do something about this. It gave me like a pathway out of my depression and anxiety.
Yeah. When you mentioned, something popped in my head. It's like listening. But I don't want to interrupt you, so I'm like, listen. Then I forget.
Next time, interrupt me.
Yeah, just interrupt me. Just throw the axe in there. We're gonna come later to me, I guess, or maybe not. Anyway, so that's the first book, Happiness. And what I want to mention about it, almost feels like it's wrong to have that word for happiness, because when you say happy, smiling, happy, that's association.
Yeah.
There's much deeper, like it would be better to use the deeper fulfillment and blah, 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 something what is more, because it feels like when you see someone, look at them, they're just so happy all the time. and then someone struggles with depression and all sorts of things, but like they put the smile on their face every day, and you don't know, is it true, is it real, is it not real, and all those kind of things.
When you're so right that kind of the word happiness is just fucked now, because we think of it as like partying and having a good time. And it's like, we know that doesn't actually necessarily mean you're feeling fulfilled with your life or at peace inside. You know, the other kind of word to describe what I'm talking about is inner peace. Really being at peace with yourself and at peace with the world. And one of the things I really love about Buddhism, first of all, is that it's not a religion. You don't have to believe in God. You don't have to believe in rebirth or any of this stuff. It's very pragmatic and scientific. It's not.
Can you have sex before marriage?
Oh yeah.
Oh
yeah. There's no sins in Buddhism.
Well, I always knew that Buddhism, that's the one I would take. I also trained Kung Fu for 2 years. And I was like, these guys, they should look like Buddhist monks and stuff. And they actually grew up in some of those.
Shaolin monks and stuff, I should clarify what I mean by there's no sins. There's no sins. There's things that are skillful and unskillful. So certain things are said to be skillful. You know, they lead you towards greater inner peace and well-being. And other things are unskillful. They lead you away from that. So what in Christianity they might call a sin, in Buddhism we call it an unskillful action. Oh, really? It doesn't mean you can't do it. It just means, hey, you get to bear the consequences of if you call somebody a piece of shit, that's not necessarily skillful. Like you deal with the consequences of that. Anyways, one of the things I like about it is, you know, the statue of the Buddha that you always see, and the Buddha, the smile isn't this like ecstatic, like, hey, I'm having a great time. It's like this calm, contented, serene smile. And to me, that is more evocative of the type of happiness that I was looking for, which is this contentment, you know, to really be like at peace with what I have and all that. Not this like always having a good time, because that's what my life was. Full of partying and smiles and sex and music and food, but I wasn't at peace.
One word for you: mushrooms.
That's another episode we could talk about, but I'm actually very much a proponent of psychedelics for people's healing. If it's done in the right way. Again, you can go to a rave and do it, and it's just drug. In my experience in the past, like I wouldn't. Only one time I actually went to like the rave kind of party. That was not good. That it was not nice. Yeah. I don't know. I think mushrooms. This is such an amazing journey, and finding all sorts of things, and super important. Who is your buddy, and is it 1, 2 people, 3 people? I always had only with one other person, and every time I would have just so much interesting revelations. There would be laughs, there would be cries, and that's like this crazy roller coaster, which is kind of like, you know, kind of on like feelings on steroids, I want to say it. Like if you hear music, you can, oh, it's a nice song. No, it's like, oh my God, that's the best song ever. It's like, or you think about something sad. Oh, it's sad. No, it's so sad. I just want like, it's just all of your emotions are so like kind of. You feel your emotions in it like deeply.
Yeah, and then you're so connected with nature. It's insane. All you want to look is in green stuff and flowers.
That's what, it's so sad to me. People who only do shrooms like at a rave and have never done it in nature. No. Fuck, man, like you gotta go sit under a tree and just stare at the sky.
That ain't no right, I'm telling you. That ain't no right.
That ain't no right.
That ain't no right.
Ain't no right with that.
Oh, God. Cool. Yeah, the other one I would mention. Did you see the movie called The Shrink?
No.
The Shrink with Kevin Spacey. He was playing this shrink whose wife committed suicide. And so it's very like LA movie. It's actually filmed in LA. All these biggest like LA actors kind of there. They're all there. And he hated himself so bad, like because he is a shrink who helps people, and he didn't even notice that his wife is going through this crazy stuff, and she killed herself in the car accident. Wow. And he was invited to go to all of these interviews because his book became a bestseller, and the title of the book is Happiness.
Oh shit!
And literally, he starts the interview, happiness. That is and all of a sudden he just like takes his book and rips apart or chucks it away. It's like, this is bullshit or whatever. And he just walks away because like he's like, this is so, and it's so pretentious for him to talk about happiness when his wife just killed herself. Yeah. Anyways, check out that movie. So the Shrink. Really interesting concept. Okay, next book is Men's Search for Meaning. I heard about this book many times. I heard about the story. the concept when
Yeah.
they were in concentration camps, and then everything was taken away from them, everything, and they were treated so badly, and then you kind of somehow find that place or space inside your head that no one can take away those things from you.
Yeah.
And that incredible book.
Yeah, life-changing book for people who haven't read it. Yeah.
And when someone complains about their life, read that book.
Yeah.
Read that book, bitch.
Yeah.
And some like these stories, how like these German whatever these guards would treat them so badly and say like how they would say, oh, German workers would do this job 10 times better, and then this guy's like,
you haven't fed us in 3 months.
Haven't fed us 3 months, or like giving this food. We don't know what is going on with our families and stuff. Yeah. You threatening us to kill every other day. We see dead bodies around you. How can you possibly compare that with so many crazy things? Oh, but the biggest thing about this book, in my opinion, and let's see what you think about it, is that how these people who were under this regime and they were surrounded by this evil, and they would accept that or as a norm, as like, this is nothing bad we're doing here. And then there was one of those, he had this like crazy nickname that he was a Dr. Death or something, and he ended up being in a Russian prison with this other guy. And then this other guy met the guy who wrote this book or who told the story and told him that this guy was one of the nicest guys ever. And he would have that name as a doctor of death in that camp. So basically the story goes here about all these guards and who are so evil and bad, whether are they evil and bad people or they are in this environment and this whole belief system what they just follow blindly because they think they're going for a better good or something.
Yeah. I mean, the famous Stanford prison experiment is all about that. And it showed that you take a bunch of random, kids at Stanford and give them this power and they will treat people, horribly. So we know that the psychology is fucked up there. For me, the biggest kind of key takeaway from that book is just showing you how important it is to find that sense of meaning in your life, that like you can be in the most dire conditions, literally in a concentration camp where they're killing people left and right, but they can never take away kind of how you respond to your environment, that you can choose to respond from a place of love or compassion or patience or solidarity, or you can choose to kind of respond with anger and hatred and all these other things. And to me, that's the key takeaway. It's like finding how you want to respond to the situations in your life. Like, how do you want to show up in the world? What kind of values? What kind of a person do you want to be? Do you want to be the person who's just giving up and whatever? Or do you want to be the person who's, even in difficult circumstances, trying to take care of your friends and your neighbors?
Yeah, that is big. And you can see how many people having the same exact environment will react differently. Yeah. And, for me, that is a story of where I grew up in small town. And I would say that I would have all these people in my school who had exactly the same opportunities, exactly the same environment where they were raised. And now I can look at them. Everyone is so in such different placements in their life. Some of them never left their little town. They're like alcoholics or whatever, and then just never pursued anything. Some of them just did amazing things with their life, and then some of them, like me, just does whatever. Yeah. But it is crazy how to see in the same environment. And then further, I would say down the line, the same thing was happening in Riga when I would go to university, and then I would go to take my master's degree, and I would see like again someone was just like, oh, I just need this degree, and my life is going to get so much better. Yeah, no, it's not. You know, it's about you, what you're gonna do with this and stuff, and yeah. And then when I moved to Canada, it was interesting that I would sleep on the floor for like how many months now, maybe weeks. And I remember it was tough to find work, and like you don't know anyone. And we had like maybe 10, maybe less Latvians who we knew. And only me and this one guy, we stayed, continued hustling and trying to figure out how to survive. And most of them in 1-2 months, they're just like, oh, Mom, send me money, I'm going home. And we were like, we had this kind of a crazy immigrant, also small town mentality, because both of us, we came from small towns to big city, the capital city, Riga. Then we fought for like surviving and living and whatever. And then we already had that kind of a feeling that this is how you do it. And we were accustomed to it almost, you know. And then going there, and then afterwards I was just like continuing having the same attitude. So even when I moved to Bali, I was like straight away finding people, who's doing what, you know. It's a different like kind of mentality. Then the next two books I didn't read, I didn't listen. There was Wherever You Go, There You Are by John Kabat-Zinn. Tell me about that book.
I can sum it up just in the title. Like just the idea that so many people have that, like, oh, once I get to here, once I have this, you know, once I do this, then it'll be different. But the thing is, it's like wherever you go, you're bringing that same attitude with you.
Right.
Like if you don't know how to be happy with what you have now, like getting a better car, getting a better girlfriend, it's not going to change. Like you have to change who you are from the inside. So that, if, you know, it's just that concept. Like wherever you go, you're bringing that same asshole.
Yes.
You know? Like,
well, it is kind of same asshole you bring with you.
Yeah. Oh, shit.
Oh, shit.
Oh, damn.
Oh, shit.
Wow.
Yes. That's what's up.
Yeah.
It could be like, I don't know, like in Bali you can do this called the anal bleaching. Maybe it could be like different type of asshole, but it's still going to be the same asshole.
Yeah. I mean, isn't it like the anal suntanning thing?
Yeah,
that's getting crazy.
I was actually recently trying to convince someone that the way you can tell someone's age, just like, you know, when you cut the tree, you see how many lines. So that's how you can tell someone's age when they bend over and how many wrinkles in their bumhole.
Okay.
Yeah. I know a lot of people ages around Bali. No, just joking. But also there was a similar concept from the whole thing of The Secret. Remember there was the book and now the film. I mean, a lot of it was a lot of bullshit. You know, then afterwards they were saying like they also on talking about Joe Rogan's podcast and like I think a producer of that film was on Joe Rogan's podcast and he said like this is such a bull of crap they were working on.
Bullshit.
But in the same time, what you were saying like about the first book, Happiness, there were some little similarities like how the way you act and the way you are, you're going to attract those things. You know, it's all about the law of attraction. Totally. But I was like, it totally makes sense. If you are always grumpy, hate your life, you don't want to be just nice to people around you, obviously people don't want to hang out with you.
Yeah.
You know, you're not going to attract nice people around you. If you're going to attract someone, I don't know, who are those people?
Yeah.
But that's the thing. You go and talk and you're interactive and you're smiling, you're attracting people.
Exactly.
So
there's some truth to it. It's just some people take The Secret too far.
Yeah, because they were like, I'm just gonna wish and it's gonna happen.
Yeah, I'm gonna manifest my dream villa in Bali and it's gonna happen.
It did. And the last book was Rage of Dragons, and it's a fiction. You're a fiction buddy, aren't you? You gave me one of the movies as well as fiction, but well, most of them, but the one is anima. So what's about this book? So
the book, it's a great story about perseverance. Fucking just, you just have to read it. Do you read fiction or?
No. I was, and that's something what I kind of want to get into because
read this book. It's like for men. I mean, it's like a macho kind of. It's this badass character who just goes down into the darkness.
So the main question is, am I going to masturbate more or less after I read this book? Or just want to impregnate all the women I see around me?
Your testosterone might like jump by like 500% after reading this book, so you might masturbate more. But it's a badass book. The main character is flawed. You know, he's like, but he's also just such a fucking badass. Like for me, probably in the movies that I listed in the books, I love badass characters. These larger than life, like heroes that are just against all odds. They are badass motherfuckers. Yeah. And this guy in the story just
also the underdogs, or
he's also an underdog.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh, okay.
He's an underdog, but he just, because of his grit and perseverance and hard work and his willingness to literally go into the darkness, in this case, like he
said once in a while, this is America.
No.
No.
It's actually written by a African author, so it kind of takes place in
Because it's
Africa.
American dream. It used to be the idea that you work hard and you're gonna get your 7-Eleven.
Oh yeah.
that kind of is not there anymore. I'm guessing.
No.
And that's cool. Like, so you're talking about these kind of larger than life characters, and Gladiator probably would be a good movie to talk about.
Well, and Gladiator is also just like, for me, I love movies that show us like an example of how to live with honor or value or like to be a better person. And
Right.
I mean, that character, it's just like, again, another badass. Like,
because in his case, because like he was an underdog, he was like really worked hard and he got to the peak and he just got dropped.
Yeah.
By this nasty prince, motherfucker. And with who I was working on the film 20 years later after Gladiator.
Wow.
On Napoleon. Joaquin Phoenix was playing the Napoleon.
Wow.
And it's coming out pretty soon, I think.
Really?
And the coolest thing, which I can tell you, is that the opening scene in Gladiator.
Yeah.
So when there's this battle with these forest people. Yeah, my people. Oh yes, my people. My people. They were having a fight, and one of our scenes of Napoleon was taken there.
Wow.
We were filming right there. Same director, same main cast.
Same director.
Yeah. So
I can't wait to see this.
Ridley Scott and Joaquin Phoenix, but 20 years later.
Wow.
And it's crazy. And so many stunt guys, they were like wearing diapers, when that movie came out, and now they're part of it.
Wow.
And it's I was one of them who was wearing diapers when I was 18. Yeah. So it's like 20 years ago. Crazy. 20 years ago I was 18. That's crazy. I'm so old.
Damn.
How old are you?
36.
36. You're younger than me.
That's right.
You're not allowed to be so.
I look.
You're
all
not
this
allowed.
Wisdom.
You're not allowed to
old.
be so wise. Yeah. And I sound like I'm like 16 years old. Weird. Yeah. But English is my third language, so maybe that's kind of towards me.
Probably all that porn.
And so, do you remember like your favorite part of Gladiator? Are you not entertained? Are you entertained?
I don't remember my favorite part. I mean, I haven't even seen it that long. I just remember the impact it had on me.
Yeah. Cool. Shawshank Redemption.
Yeah,
that's one of my classics.
It's another. Like, I don't even really remember like the scenes or what happens. It just that movie hits you. Yeah.
So bad. What was the guy's name? The main character who was imprisoned, so he killed his wife. What was his name? Because Morgan Freeman would have that monologue. And he came in, and he was just like, and at the beginning I looked like he had a silver spool up his ass or something like that.
Yeah. I have to go back and watch it again. It's been too long.
Yeah, it's such a good film.
Yeah.
Was it a fiction though, or was it like based on some kind of true story? It was total fiction.
Maybe it's based on something, but.
And then the only film which I don't know from yours is
Fuck it, Princess Mononoke. Come on, man. Come on. All right, Princess Mononoke. Spirited Away?
It's anime, right?
Anime.
Anime.
Yeah,
Anime.
It's a Japanese animation.
Yeah, this is a proof that you're younger than me.
Yes.
Because you watch some weird kid stuff. And porn.
Yeah. All right.
There's a lot of porn anime out there.
Oh yeah, I used to watch them.
Huge. Is that what you started with?
Not what I started with, but I went through a phase. Where
Was it kind of
tentacle porn?
Because of the Princess Mononoke?
No, Princess Mononoke. All right, listen. You got to watch Princess Mononoke because this is a badass motherfucker.
Get inspired by Princess Mononoke to watch for porn and anime.
You probably might. If you watch that, you might start watching some porn. But it's by a very famous Japanese director who did like Spirited Away, which many people know won like Academy Awards and stuff. But Princess Mononoke is one of his films, and it's just a beautiful film about. I mean, it's take some shrooms and watch it, and you'll seriously take some shrooms and watch it, and you'll thank me later.
Okay, we'll do that.
Promise me.
Yeah, I will. I'll promise you. I still have some left in my fridge, by the way. Okay. We did the tea this time. It was amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, and then people, literally out of all of them, I just know Joe Rogan.
I mean, yeah, Joe Rogan, like, who doesn't love him? Just a sweetheart.
Why do you love him?
I love him because...
I think he's hot. I would have babies with him.
I don't know if I want a gorilla.
You look a little bit like him.
Yeah.
Is that inspiration as well? Like gorilla. What's wrong with the masculine man?
No, it's wrong. He wouldn't be my first
And
choice.
he wouldn't be on top. Why he has to be on top?
I just have a feeling. Anyways, let's stop sexualizing and objectifying Joe Rogan. Let's talk about his inner heart qualities.
Yeah.
Why do I love him? He knows how to enjoy his life. You know, he loves to laugh and have a good time, but he's also serious and likes to interview scientists and learn about the world. He really does strike me as a kind person. Like, he cares about people. And on some of his episodes, you see it coming out. Like, he'll cry, you know? And it's like, I think he's just a beautiful example of a well-rounded human being. Someone who's authentic and not fake, because there's so many fake people in our world today. And he knows he calls himself a buffoon, and he is sometimes. But that's beautiful. Like, he's not trying to pretend to be something else.
And actually, because of him, I'm more coming to being okay with that I'm a buffoon.
Yeah.
Because very often I'm like, you know, on the intellectual level, I don't know certain things and I say things which are wrong, but I'm not embarrassed about them. I think when I was younger, I was.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know how to spell that. I don't know what is that. And now I'm just kind of throwing it out there. I'm wrong. Oh, I'm wrong. Okay. So move on. You know, if you really want to learn it, then you just go and look it up and you're fine.
Yeah.
But there's one interesting fact. I don't know if you see in one of his episodes, Joe Rogan was saying that he couldn't ejaculate before he actually had sex with a woman. So he would so I saw that and I was like, oh my God, we're just so similar in so many levels. He's like my brother. Like, cause I, youngster, I would masturbate. I could never ejaculate. I would have only like the wet dreams or whatever, but I never could come. And then after I had sex with my girlfriend for like certain period of time, then I would like, whether I haven't seen her for a while, because we had a long distance relationship. So it was like, I wouldn't see her for a while and then I would like masturbate and I could come. And Joe Rogan had the same thing. And so he said it's a very common thing and just people don't talk about it. And it's very interesting how like that you have that certain block. Yeah. Something is not really working in your body or like something wasn't opened. And one of the craziest, I think, episodes with him is like when he was interviewing that girl who escaped from North Korea.
I don't know if I saw that. I remember when...
Dude. And the crazy thing I mentioned you about Snipes, Roger Snipes, who was my guest as well. And he did interview with her as well. But they just did the Zoom interview, Zoom podcast. Yeah. And so anyways, like when Joe Rogan was doing that interview with her, I was driving from one stunt job, and I was like in dark, just in my van. Like my lights were really shit. I was like kind of struggling to see the road. And they were talking about this like for like 2 hours, right?
And you just like transported.
It's just all the crazy stuff was going on in North Korea with this girl and with these people. It's unbelievable.
I'll have to go back and listen to it.
You have to listen to it. It's crazy.
I remember when it came out, but I just didn't listen.
Yeah, no, Joe Rogan is cool. Like, I want to put a little button where if we talk about, we mention him, it's like, oh, hail Joe Rogan. Like, everyone does the sound.
Yeah.
And because of him, there's so many people found their voices. It's insane.
Yeah.
Podcasts, like how many, he's the granddaddy of the podcast. Yeah. Okay, and then you have two people, one I can't pronounce the name,
Ajahn Chah.
Ajahn Chah.
Yeah. He's a famous Thai forest meditation master. So just a very inspiring figure. You know, he kind of helped create this new movement in Thailand, like maybe 80 years ago, 100 years ago. Back in Thailand, for a long time, they lost the practice of meditation, and they were treating it more like a religion and rituals and chanting. And he kind of brought it back to like, hey, let's actually get serious about this. But the reason I love him, he's just, you can see like he's just a happy person, but also he's kind of a trickster. Like, he likes to play pranks on people.
Telling you shrooms.
Yeah, he might have done some
microdosing all the time.
But you can just feel the sense of joy and happiness and inner peace in this kind of simple monastic.
And the thing is that you meet people who they try to do that, but you see it's fake.
Yeah. Especially in Bali.
It looks so sad.
Yeah.
It looks so sad. And I had this one. Do you remember there's called Bloom Festival?
I've heard of it.
Bloom Festival. I went to one of those.
Yeah.
And there's this one girl who was like all spiritual. She was all connected. She was like all this shit. And then in the evening we were there, and her house was like, or the place where she was staying was kind of nearby. I was just talking to someone, and she would look at me. She's like, hey, you. I was like, excuse me? Like, she's like, you with big muscles, come help me with a bag or something. And I'm like, first of all, I don't appreciate you talking to me this way. And blah, blah, blah. And then she lost her shit. So she started yelling at me like this and that. I'm like, but it could be the same thing. It's just like someone has issues and they just lost their plot or whatever. Yeah. But it is unfortunate when people are like, yeah, I'm just this inspirational person and stuff. It's like, no, just be yourself. Yeah. I think be yourself and be the nicest you can possibly be. Yeah, and we all know that we have capacity of being nasty. Yeah. But then what do we do with that? Do we think about, like, afterwards, do we try to be different? Because I know that I have that, and my girl who I'm seeing at the moment, she says that I can be quite reactive on things. But one thing when I changed, or I'm trying to work on, is I react and then I think about it and try to prevent that in the future. Yeah. I look at you looking at your watch. Yeah. So your lady is waiting for you. Okay, we have last guy was Alex Honnold.
Alex Honnold. Do you know who he is?
No.
Oh, man.
Maybe if I would see him.
Have you not seen the documentary Solo or Free Solo?
Free Solo, what is that, skydiving?
No, it's about a man
climbing. The climber guy. Oh, yeah, I know about this guy. Yeah, it's just not good with names. Yeah. Had to look it up, sorry. Didn't do my homework properly this time.
But he's just a cool guy. Like, I just love his attitude.
He was on Joe Rogan's podcast, wasn't he?
Yeah, one of the best episodes. Yeah. Just another guy who's super authentic and enjoying his life and, like, living in a simple way.
Yeah. Authenticity is a huge now. Yeah. Okay, before you run back to your lady, just one more thing. Give me I usually end with a bomb of wisdom. What would be the bomb of wisdom? I mean, you've been throwing bombs this whole evening. But to a younger version of yourself, or to a person who would like to pursue what you're doing? Or both, or separate?
Let me start with the easier one. Somebody who wants to pursue what I'm doing.
Yep.
I would say Coactive Training Institute is one of the best coaching schools. They've been doing it the longest, for like 40 years. They certify the most number of coaches. They have tons of different locations you can get trained at, and it's just a very rigorous program, and you get ICF-certified. Put in the work, put in the investment to get that, because especially if you want to coach people in the corporate sector, they look for that ICF certification. If you're just being a backpacker coach, life coach, you might not need it. But if you want to work high level, high ticket clients, get the ICF certification.
I hope ICF is paying you some money for advertising them so heavily.
ICF doesn't.
ICF is the best. Yeah. ICF is so great.
Yeah. No, but I believe, like, train yourself. Don't just be a life coach that tells people what to do, because you're doing yourself a disservice and you're doing your clients a disservice. And it's going to improve your relationships. Like, learning how to coach is learning how to put your agenda aside and really get curious about what's going on with the person in front of you.
Right.
Yeah. What would I tell myself? A younger version
Jerk off less.
Fuck, that's a good question. I mean, just, like, never give up on yourself. I don't know. It sounds kind of corny, but all the shit that I went through, all the hard times, all the loneliness, all the depression, it's made me a stronger person, because I've learned how to work with those emotions. I guess, like, learning how to be more vulnerable, like letting people in earlier on.
That's my
let people in.
Big stamp on my forehead.
Yeah, like, being vulnerable, showing, what's really going on, and being okay with letting people into your life to help you. Admitting that you need help is something I wish I had done earlier.
Yeah, and that takes balls. Because especially
men. For men.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Listen, what do we have here?
This is beautiful.
There you go, buddy. On this one, we're going to finish this one. Thank you so much, Jeremy. Thank you, and good luck with your future endeavors.
Thanks, brother. It's been an honor and a pleasure.
Thank you, man.
and a hoot as
well.
And
a hoot.
Blah, blah, blah. Renars Podcast.